What's up, guys? It's JZNES. We're back again with another video, and today we're talking about... Wait a second, that's not a fucking video game, that's a book! What the hell? And there's like a movie behind there or some shit. Like, what the fuck is this? This isn't no video game. But, yeah, you know what? It's video game related, so I'm putting it in there. This is Ready Player One. This is my favorite book. It's probably in the title or whatever. And I want to get into why that is, you know, because it's a really amazing book, and there's a combination of things that makes this, like, the best book, in my opinion, to me, you know. Not that it's the greatest written piece of fiction of all time, but to me, it's pretty damn close, just because I get all excited every time I read it, and, you know, listen to it, really, but we'll get into that in a second. This video is sponsored by Audible, except it's not. That'd be awesome if it was, but it's not. But yeah, I always listen to the Audible version because it's like, it's just more convenient. I can like do other shit. Like I was cleaning my house yesterday while listening to the Audible version. So there you go. Free plug for Audible there. Sponsor me in the future. Why don't you? But yeah, so Ready Player One was a book that came out in 2011. And it was the perfect timing. Okay, so yeah, so sorry. Here's what I'm doing. This time I'm gonna be like every other YouTuber ever, like Jenny Nicholson or like Tamashi Hiroka, and I'm gonna do a numbered list of why Ready Player One is my favorite book of all time. And so number one, perfect timing and the contest for real. So yeah, so this kind of came out at the perfect time in my life to be, like, an amazing thing to me, because at the time, 2011, I was, well, shit, I didn't read it right when the book came out, or whatever. I probably read it in, like, 2012 or so, but, yeah, so, essentially, that was right when I was getting back into retro video games and whatnot. And I like purchased my NES and all this stuff, and you know, just really started getting right back into retro gaming and started buying stuff for my 64 again. And you know, it's the origins of that, the birthplace of that. I don't know if I was doing the full set yet. I don't think I was really on that level yet, but I had jumped head wide into the YouTube community. You know, I was all into stuff like Pat the NES Punk and the AVGN and all those guys. HVGN, of course, Derek Alexander, my man, and Tamashi Hiroka, of course, as I mentioned earlier. Didn't know who Jenny Nicholson was back then, but just funny because I probably saw her at the fucking convention that I went to. But anyway, different story for a different time of a non-related thing to video games there. But anyway, so, basically, it came out at the perfect time for me to really be interested in this book. You know, this is right when retro video games were still really magical to me, and not that they're not now. It's just it's different now. You know, now I'm a little bit older, and I don't have that kind of same wonder and joy always. You know, with video games, they still can get that out of me a lot of times, but I'm a fucking old cynical man now. You know, how many years later? Like fucking 9 years later or whatever the fuck. So whatever, like, you know, it was just a special time in gaming for me because I was, like I said, just getting back into this stuff. And so, this book came out, and I remember my friend having it or whatever, and he was like, or my friend had given it to one of my friends for his birthday or whatever, who cares? Like, it was just like one of these things, like, I was like, oh, whatever, you know, like, okay, that sounds alright. But then, like, Johnny Millennium, you know, Happy Console Gamer, and the All Gen Gamers started talking about this, and they got fucking Ernest Cline, the guy who wrote the book, on the podcast, the All Gen Gamers or whatever, and I was really, really into All Gen Gamers back then. Like, I fucking loved All Gen Gamers. I still love All Gen Gamers. I'm listening through it again right now because it's awesome, you know? But yeah, so, like, it was at the perfect time to where all these things were lining up, and so I heard about this book, and they start describing this book, and I'm like, man, this sounds like the fucking coolest book ever, you know? Like, this sounds amazing. Like, I need to get in on this book, like, now, you know? Because I remember Robman and Johnny did their review of the book, and I'm like, you know, just like, that is when I was watching through his videos and stuff, and I'm like, holy shit, this sounds like the fucking coolest thing ever. So you know, I don't want to like get into all the details and whatever. I mean, I'll get into some of them, but like a lot of people know about this book already. But for those who don't, I'll get into that in a minute, like what it's about and stuff. But there's a lot of like retro video game related stuff in there, and so the basic premise is it's all about this contest. This guy James Halliday invents this like virtual reality MMO that like people on this world, it's like the new reality basically. Everyone uses this thing. It's not just some niche video game. It's not even just World of Warcraft. It's like bigger than that, man. Like everyone uses this thing because the future is like a dystopian kind of future, and it still is the future for a little bit. It's like 2045 or something, so we'll probably make it there. Maybe this will all happen. That'd be amazing, wouldn't it? Maybe not the dystopian future part, but the MMO video game part. But also maybe not, because, you know, we don't want that to happen. Anyway, so there's this contest. Basically, James Halliday is the guy who designed this. He's filthy rich, you know, because everyone uses this game, and this guy runs this whole company, and he dies suddenly, and so this video gets sent out. It's like all these 80s references or whatever in this video, sent out to like every Oasis user. That's what it's called, the Oasis or whatever is the console. It's like a VR sort of thing, you know what I mean? So like it's like you're in there, you've got like gloves, and like some people have like treadmills and stuff that they can walk on, or like immersion rigs is what they call them. So it's pretty cool stuff. So this guy James Halliday, he dies, and he like this video goes out to everyone, and he's saying like, you can be the owner of my company and you get all my money and all my video games and all this shit if you can finish this contest, and if you can find my Easter egg that I put into the game. Now, you know, Easter egg is a thing where it's like, it was the original one, or one of the most famous original ones was the Adventure Easter egg with Warren Robinette, and you like had to do all this obscure stuff to like find his name in the game, because, you know, Atari didn't program didn't credit their programmers back then, because they didn't want them to get poached by other game companies or whatnot. So this guy snuck his name into the game, and it's like one of the first video game Easter eggs or whatever. So there's this big hunt for this Easter egg, and he's like, oh, I hid 3 keys, and these keys open gates that'll like lead you to this Easter egg. And so like everyone and their mom like is on this shit, like flies on shit, you know, like fucking Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory style. Like that's kind of the inspiration. I knew that was gonna happen eventually. That's kind of the inspiration for the contest as a whole. Is that kind of thing. You know, think that, like, where everyone's trying to find these keys or whatever, but like the keys are all tied to like, it's all like, he made it clear that all the references, you know, the 80s references and stuff he grew up with was going to be like an essential part of like finding these keys and this Easter eggs and that kind of thing. So basically, all of this kind of plays out, and then the story starts with, well, it doesn't start with that, but it starts with the process of getting to the main character, Wade Watts, finding the first key, and then it kind of just goes on from there. So, and that's all just like in the first few pages of the book, like it's not even, that's not even spoilers really. So yeah, so it's like this big, you know, exciting contest, and there's like this whole mystery around it and everything, and so that's pretty cool, and I'll get to that in a bit here. But so what's cool is, the first thing I wanted to say was cool is it came out at kind of the right time, like I said. But also, Ernest Cline, the guy who did the book, did a contest in real life that was really similar to the contest in the book, which just got us all hyped again about the fucking book. I was already super hyped, but like the contest was just like, oh my god, there's a contest for this? Like, so it was like, there's an Easter egg in the book, which it's not really spoilers anymore, but I'll just tell you. If you go to gregariousgames.com or something to that effect, you'll find a game called The Stacks, which is a reference to Wade Watts programmed this game in the book or whatever. But you actually get to play like a newly made Atari 2600 game. And I remember doing all this and stuff too, and then like taking my photo next to the high scoreboard. Like, I still have that photo somewhere. I've got that Power Glove and like my fucking Pokemon hat or whatever. It's just really old and funny, but Yeah, it's pretty cool, you know, for back in the day. But I remember doing all that. And you know what was fucked up? Like, I looked through the book a bunch of times, and I spent way more time than I needed to, because all you had to do was when you get to GregariousGames.com, that's like one of the first things I tried. You just have to scroll down, and then there's the thing. Like, I was so stupid. And then there was some Facebook game, and then the third game I never, like, got to, because the Facebook game never worked for me, because, I don't know, it was fucking stupid or whatever, and it just didn't work out for me. So I never won the DeLorean or whatever. Some guy won it. I don't know. But, you know, it was cool. Yeah, but, you know, just like, who does that kind of thing? Like, makes a contest, like the same contest that was in this guy's book and all of that. That's just so cool. Like, that there was even that to begin with. That was awesome. And so it was such a cool time, you know, to have all of that happening or whatever. So, yeah, like, alright, so basically, okay, number 2, the good video game references and good fan service. So, most things when they reference stuff, and even when I'm writing stuff and I reference stuff, it doesn't always work out the best, like, you know, it seems a little forced a lot of the time or something. But, like, here, the whole thing is, like, this guy was obsessed with the 80s and pop culture and video games and stuff, so all of the references can tie in to the quest of finding this thing. So it's, like, brilliantly done in the sense that everything that is even mildly related to this James Halliday guy could be related to this quest. And so it's like this big mystery and this big fun thing to like put together the pieces of like, alright, what do I need? What does this clue mean? Like they have a clue at the beginning like about how to find the copper key or whatever. And like everyone's been scrutinizing over this for like 5 years, and then finally like Wade Watts puts it together like, oh, this is what that means. And then he figures it out and finds the first key and all, copper key and all that. But like any reference could be related to things. So it's like you tie in your references and your fan service there to your main idea and your main premise. And I think that works a lot better than, for example, when TV shows like something becomes like a meme or it's like a fan thing or something, and then the TV show like shoehorn it in there. Like, I fucking hated that shit when that happened back in the day. I'm not gonna say which show. You probably already know what I'm talking about, but like, fucking God, I just hate it when something becomes cool within a fandom or something, and then they'll like reference it in the show, and they'll be like, "Oh, look, here it is. We understand. We see the reference." Like, okay, come on. Like, you know, it has to be tastefully done. You can't just shove this shit in there and have it not work and not have it relate to anything. That just doesn't work. That's bad fan service. That's pandering. But in this book, it's not pandering, and it doesn't feel like pandering, to me anyway. I mean, I know a lot of people's complaints is that it does feel like pandering. But if you're kind of there, and you're kind of in the mindset of like a retro gamer, and you're kind of really into that kind of stuff like I am, and you know, like Atari's a little bit before my peak interest point of time or whatever. I don't really mess with those games much. I got like a big set of them back there. I don't fucking give a shit about Atari that much, but I enjoy the feel around the Atari community. You know, like it was something really special for them back in the day, and I appreciate that. You know what I mean? Like I don't really understand or care for adventure, but I know it was a big inspiration to The Legend of Zelda, the first one. So, you know, I'm thankful that it was there to make that push. This is a fucking long-ass song. Holy shit, this is like 15 minutes long! What the hell? Sorry, I've been subjecting you guys listening to this for like fucking 9 minutes. Jesus Christ, I didn't even realize that was 15 minutes long. Yeah, some of these are extended, I forgot about that. Yeah, so like, what's cool about it is that, is that I appreciate that kind of stuff. I'm not necessarily as into that kind of stuff, but I appreciate it. You know, my kind of farthest back is like maybe the NES kind of thing. That's my, you know, big thing, like Jay-Z, NES, and all that, so. And that's kind of where I appreciate things. But, you know, there wasn't really a lot of, like, NES and stuff in the book. There was a little bit, but, like, not too terribly much. It's mostly about Atari and old arcade games and that kind of stuff. And I still really appreciate that. Like, you know, there's a part where they do like Joust and like Black Tiger, which is like an obscure arcade game that this guy like played back in the day or whatever. And what's cool was they had when the movie came out, they had at my local barcade Analog, they had both Black Tiger and Joust there to like play, and like something else that was related to Ready Player One or some shit like that. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So I actually did get to play Black Tiger a few times. It's very Castlevania-esque in a sense, and I wasn't very good at it, but I remember that being there, so that was a pretty cool thing for them to put in there for a minute. But yeah, so I guess what was I even getting at? I got so sidetracked. Yeah, the references are well done and they're well implemented, and I don't know really what else I want to say about that, I guess. There's a part where, you know, this is what I'm saying, like I'm gonna probably have to get into a bit of spoilers, but there's a part where he has to go into one of the gates. Actually, I think it's just the first gate or whatever, but he has to go into the gate, and the whole thing is it's a recreation of war games to where you basically, as a VR player, you play through the movie yourself, and you have to do all the dialogue and the actions and all of that kind of stuff. And I thought that was really cool. And because of this movie, I basically like took all of the movies that they referenced and like went and watched most of them or whatever. And a lot of them were like whatever, okay, but like War Games is actually a pretty good movie. You know, Matthew Broderick or whatever, and is that famous line, you know, the only winning move is not to play or whatever. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, and it's like the ultimate video game hacker, like, kind of dream thing. Like, he has to play a game with the supercomputer that's going to launch all these missiles or whatever to, like, stop it from doing that. So he's, like, breaking his government facility and stuff. It's like really 80s, like, stuff. But it's a pretty good movie. It's enjoyable enough, a fun movie if you're looking to watch something like that. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, so, you know, I hadn't seen any of these. Like, I seen some of those movies. Like, it finally got me to watch, like, Blade Runner and stuff, which, like, I think was okay movie, you know, like, I'm not as, like, super hyped about it as everyone else. And I watched it since, and, like, I get why people like it, but I'm, like, not as into it as everyone else. And it's, like, a science fiction classic or whatever, so I'm, like, speaking blasphemy here, but, you know, I think it's an alright movie. Like, it's okay. I appreciate what it is, or whatnot, so... But, yeah, because there's another part where they, like, kind of reference Blade Runner in there, and that's, like, one of Ernest Cline's, like, favorite movies, and, like, Johnny Millennium, so they kind of, like, geeked out about that. And Buckaroo Banzai, which, they only, like, briefly mentioned the book, but, like, they went really hard into that in the podcast, like, where they're talking about the book Ready Player One or whatever on the All Gen Gamers there. And so I watched that movie. That's a pretty good movie, too. So... It's an interesting movie for sure, but yeah, and they really get into that in the movie version of Ready Player One, which is funny. Like, Buckaroo Banzai is such a bigger thing in there, and she's all like, "Oh, you like Buckaroo Banzai? I like it too. That's amazing," or whatever. It's just like, I don't know. Like, so I'll get into the movie here in a bit. Like, it's just not as good as the book. Like, if you're gonna do this thing, like, I know, I guess the movie's there, but like the book, I know it's a lot longer. But like, hey, if you sign up for Audible today, use my code JZNES. There's no code JZNES. But if you use my code JZNES, you get 30 days free and one free audiobook credit. Ready Player One is on that list. So it's actually, I think, the reason I even got Audible to begin with. Of course, I have the files of it sitting around, but like, just the fact that it was kind of on there, and I'm like, all right, I want to like support this or whatever and buy this, and Will Wheaton does the reading, so I would definitely recommend the audiobook version. It's the way I always like experienced the book. I kind of read along the first time, but I don't really dust off the physical book quite too much, you know. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad to have it though. You know, physical media. I'm really into physical media. I like that kind of stuff, but So yeah, the references are well done. That's part 2. Part 3, a brilliant premise, good story structure, and the mystery. So so we already kind of talked about the premise and the story structure is that, you know, they find these keys. Like, so Wade Watts is the first one to find this key. Artemis is there. Artemis is this other character. It's this like really famous girl who is also a gunter. Sorry. Which is what they call them, the egg hunters or whatever. So yeah, so she's also a famous person like that does all the research and whatnot, and Wade Watts is like looked up to her, and he's got like a super crush on her or whatever, and just coincidentally she's kind of there the same day when he finally discovers this tomb that well, it's like the Tomb of Horrors. It's like a D&D thing or whatever. And then so Artemis is there, and he gets to meet her, and she was there like for a month before, and she never could get this thing to work, and the whole thing is like you gotta play joust against this like ancient lich king or whatever, which is pretty funny. So well, I'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, it's cool like that it's joust or whatever, and it's funny because like me and my friend used to play joust a bit too, so it kind of reminded me of me and Wade and H in the movie. H is his friend, who also, you know, like they hang out in this like simulation old school basement or whatever, and like that reminds me of me and my friends back then. It's basically what we were doing at the time, just hanging out in the basement, you know. So got some Persona 3 music going on here. Anyway, so yeah, so like, you know, I just this book I really felt that at the time, like, you know, because it was really similar. But anyway, so in the movie, one of my biggest criticisms of the movie is they basically start off right when he hasn't even discovered the first gate. Like everyone else did it, and there's no they condense it down. It's just gates. There's no like key and then gate. There's no like 2 challenges. It's just like one thing together, which is like, why would you do that? Like, it doesn't make any sense, like, at all. But it's like this race in the movie or whatever, and it's like he didn't even discover it, and it's like, okay, whatever. He discovers the solution for it, so that's pretty cool, but like, it just doesn't feel as cool, you know. And they start off with that. They don't even start off with the process of him getting to that. And in the movie, his aunt's like this like nice lady or whatever, and like in the book she's like terrible or whatever, and like I guess that kind of more endears you to a thing that happens later, which I may or may not spoil. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'll get into it if I get into it, kind of thing. But yeah, so like it was like okay, but like basically that's the whole movie in a nutshell. It was all right, but like the book just it does so much more, and it feels so much more lifelike, and there's so much more life in it. The movie feels like kind of like a, oh yeah, we know that Ready Player One thing. Like we're gonna take it and make it into morph it into a movie. Like we're gonna take all of the elements that you like, a lot of the elements that you liked, and then like we're gonna change a bunch of stuff, and it wasn't as good. Now I do like the movie, but versus the book, there's no contest. Like the book is so much better. The movie is just an adaptation, you know, at the end of the day, which is fine, and that's how it is. But so basically, what was I getting at? I just really like how the book is structured, because you got you got the whole like contest. You're always like kind of wondering what's gonna happen next, and so there's a good pacing there to that, and there's downtime in between the gates and stuff because they're like still trying to figure out like what is the meaning of the next clue or whatnot, you know. How do I get from so like gate 1, so like the key to the gate 1 is like there's not a lot of time in there because he like figures it out like almost instantly or whatever, and that's really exciting. And it's like he's like the first one on the scoreboard in the book or whatever, and there's like this scoreboard that like nobody's ever got onto, and then once he gets the copper key, he he gets on the scoreboard, so like everyone knows he's famous at that point, so there's like all these repercussions of that. But like, yeah, so like as soon as he gets past the first gate, there's like a big gap of time where he just does a bunch of other stuff until he gets to the next gate or whatever, which is pretty cool. Like the movie's just like go 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 go, you know, because it's a movie, you gotta get it done kind of thing. I get it, but like I just feel like the pacing of the book is so much better because there's downtime in between where he's trying to reason out, and then that's some of the fun of it is the mystery. He's trying to reason out what possibly could even be the meaning of these things. So like I'm trying to think what the thing was. Well, yeah, there's like this thing where it's like it's the captain conceals the jade key in a dwelling long neglected, but you can only something something when the trophies are all collected. So it's like this little, it's what is that? Is that the limerick or is that the quatrain? That's the quatrain. Yeah. So he's got to like sit here and think about all these lines, like what they even mean, and like eventually like H and Artemis put it together or whatever, and you know he's kind of behind the curve. He eventually figures it out. The other nice thing is that so I guess I'll get more into this when we do like the characters and whatnot, and that's one of my points here in a minute. But one of the nice things about the book is that there's this great friendship between all of these like 5 characters. They call them the High Five in the book, and mostly just Artemis, H, and Wade there, Parzival. These are all their screen names, by the way. Their avatar names. So I was trying to say. So there's like this nice friendship between them, and they like don't want to help each other because there's like this Gunter rule, like you don't help each other kind of thing, because it like goes against the spirit of the contest or something, which is ironic because I'll talk about that in a minute. But but like Wade gives Artemis this clue about like how to defeat the Lich King like easier, and then like he also kind of hints to H like what the challenge is gonna be, so then they kind of feel like they owe him at some point, so then they like so like H and Artemis, it's mostly like H at first because he helps them kind of figure out the thing for the Jade Key, which is pretty cool. So it's like there's this nice little friendship, and even though they don't want to help each other, they are helping each other in a sense, you know, and even just by being there for each other and whatnot. And there's a lot of aspects of some of the theming is like isolationism and escapism and stuff, and I'll talk about that more in a bit, but that kind of ties into the friendship thing too, is like you have all these like really meaningful friendships, and then at some point he kind of cuts himself off from the world, and you know he's burned all these friendships away, and you really see the effects of that, and that's I just think that's really brilliant, you know, like it's really cool because that's kind of how it is video game wise. Like, so like you play video games because you're bored, right? Like that's the thing. I guess I'll just get into it because I wanted to do like the tier list thing, but it's like that's not how my style works, right? So you play video games because you're bored, right? Or because you want to escape into that world, because much like now, you know, 2020 hasn't been the best year for most people. I've been having a pretty fun year in terms of things. It could have been a lot better, of course, but the twists and turns it's taken has been pretty decent. I've had some good things happen to me too this year, so that's nice. Definitely caught up on a lot of my backlog, as you guys have fucking seen. I've been putting out the videos, you know, and I've been working on my book again and stuff, and it's been nice for me and my passions, you know, versus, you know, like everyone's hurting for money right now and that kind of thing. I don't want to talk about the real world and all that stuff, but that's why we're making this video. It's an escapism. Look at that. We're tying it in. But one of the big themes of the book is escapism and isolation, which is a theme that I really relate to as a really hardcore gamer, you know, like hardcore gamer. Like, I guess not hardcore, but like I play a lot of games, you know, so as a gamer and identifying as a gamer, I relate to these things, you know. Video games are always kind of there for me, yeah, you know, when there wasn't ever like anybody else around kind of thing. Like sometimes I'd just be by myself a lot of times as a kid and like, well, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna play video games, of course, right? That's how that is. You know, my brother got me into video games, and then like there was a lot of times where, well, there's nothing else to do. What do? You play video games, right? That's just how it is. That's my hobby. That's my passion. You know, people read, people watch movies, or I don't fucking know what people do. Go outside or some shit. Like, nobody doing that anymore, right? No, I'm just kidding. People still go outside, but it's not recommended that you go outside, I guess. But whatever, who cares? You know, so, you know, and I had friends and everything, but it's just like one of my big things that I would do to fill my time is video games. And I had like kind of a tough time getting through school as a kid. It was just never really my thing. I kind of had a hard time focusing on like some shit that I didn't like half the time and that kind of thing. Like I fucking never understood math. I mean, I'm pretty decent at it now. I can do some basic, quick calculation kind of stuff. Mostly from experience of just like having to do that on the job and all that. But so my point is, what I would do is after a tough day of doing all that shit and having to survive school and whatever, I'd get back, and what would I do? I'd turn on the TV, watch some shows, and I'd play some fucking video games, because that's what I do, and that's what I still do now, except I just watch YouTube and not TV shows, really. But you know, like that just used to be my life for like my entire childhood. Like seriously, I like never gave up video games, really. Like I've been doing this since I was a kid, you know? And a lot of that is for escapism, you know? And because, you know, the world's tough. It's a hard place, and especially for a kid, and you know, being a teenager isn't the easiest thing to get through, and I'm glad I'm through it now, because like I feel a lot more secure with my place in life now. But shit, back then it was like, it's rough, you know? You know, if you've ever been in that position, you know, gone through those years yet, then you certainly know how it is. It's just a tough time for anybody, you know? Most of all, a guy who's, well, the other thing was, I used to work like a gajillion hours. Like, I'd work like, I mean, it's not like a gajillion hours, but it was like, I'd work every night for 4 hours after I'd get off of fucking school and shit. So it's like, on top of like doing my homework and shit, I needed something to relax with, which was video games. And I used to be a bit of a night owl. I can't really do that anymore because of my job or whatever, but I've had to become a morning person, which is something I never thought I'd have to do. But I've adjusted. But anyway, point is, I really relate to this element of escapism. Now, I mean, I don't think I've ever gone in as hard as Wade does. There's a section. So what I'm bringing this up for is there's a section in the middle of the book where you know, I'm spoiling things. I'm sorry, but I have to. It's kind of just a thing. Like so maybe just don't watch this until you've like read the book. Like I highly recommend just reading the book. Okay. So there's a part where Artemis kind of cuts off Parzival. You know, Wade Watts there, because he gets a bit too attached to her in a sense that he makes a move. He's like, you know, Artemis, I love you or whatever, and then she's all like, you know, you don't even know me because we haven't even met in real life kind of thing, even though, and then he has this great line. I love this line too. He's like, she's like, you don't even know like my true personality or whatever, and he's like, this is the Oasis. We exist purely as personality. That's part of why I'm wearing the shirt. You know, true self is without form, like Zenyatta, you know, from fucking Overwatch or whatever. But like, that's kind of brilliant. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's true. Like, a person is more than just the shell of, like, you know, physical skin. They're the mind and the body they're the mind and the soul. They are the body, of course, too, but the mind and the soul that exist within that person. So in a sense, an MMO like that basically just, oh nice, basically just strips out the body aspect of it, and you get to purely get to somebody, you know, like you get to see their mind kind of in a form, you know. Of course, you only let them see what side you want them to see, and that was kind of Artemis's argument against that. So, and these are all good themes, you know. I relate to this stuff. This is great. This is good themes. They're very inspirational. I'm using a lot of the same kind of ideas and theming in my book, because that's kind of what it's about too. Is about the horrors of escapism and the problems with that, which is actually one of my last points on my sheet there. But that's why I'm like, I gotta just get into it, because it just feels organic to get into it now, you know. So there's a part where Artemis kind of cuts him off, and cuts Wade off, and she's like, dude, we're getting way too attached, and we're Gunchers. We need to find the egg. That's our goal. That's what we're here for. That's what we're doing. I gotta cut off contact with you until we find the egg. And he tries like all of this stuff to like get a hold of her or whatever. Anyway, it's kind of appropriate for what I'm talking about, actually. Sorry, it's kind of Ari Damacy. Anyway, but so yeah, so Artemis cuts off this contact with him, and so he's like this lonely wreck, and we've all the lonely wreck. He's a lonely rolling star. And we've all been there. I mean, I don't know if we've all been there, but I've certainly fucking been there. You know, it's the perfect metaphor and like analogy. It's the perfect setting for what you feel like when being heartbroken, and I've certainly been there. And so and this is another element. I relate to this because this is something I've been through before, kind of thing. So, and what do you do when you're heartbroken? You put yourself into video games. You do escapism, right? That's what that's all about. Hey, bud. It's all about that escapism at that point, you know? And that's what I used to do. If something like that ever happened to me, I'd just dive straight into a video game. I remember Metro 2 was a big one of those, and like fucking, I don't know, right about then, you know, right around like 2014 or 13 or something. I had that problem, and Metro 2 was one of those games where I had to like, it helped through that, you know. It's a memory that I have of just like one time when that actually was a thing. But, yeah, so in terms of escapism, you know, and I used to like play through like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. I used to speedrun through at speedrun. Like, it's not like really a speedrun. It was like I want to do it in one big sitting kind of thing. Like I did a marathon thing of like where I would sit down for like 24 straight hours and play Majora's Mask to kind of get through it. Which is pretty noble and ambitious, I would say, in terms of getting through a video game in one sitting, you know. So used to do that for fun as escapism or whatnot. And Ocarina of Time, and I played through Metal Gear so many times, Metal Gear Solid 1, and just the whole Metal Gear series, really. I used to have this, like, I should have brought it up for this video. The screen is literally, like, this big. Like, I just found this thing the other day. The screen is literally, like, this big of a portable, like, one of those portable DVD players that I used to play, like, the Metal Gear games on in my room because I didn't have a TV in there or whatever. My TV was in my basement. So, yeah, so, like, basically, I get this. I get this escapism thing, and that's why that part like really resonates with me, because he just goes full on into the contest because he's like, okay, if I'm ever gonna get Artemis back, I have to finish this contest, you know, or the contest has to finish itself. I don't care who wins. Basically, is what he's trying to like get at, and he's like, I just want to see Artemis again, and like I feel that, you know, like I feel that. He's really dedicated to that, you know, and I appreciate that. That was another one of my points, is it has a good sort of love story in the background of the book, and I'm just kind of a hopeless romantic sometimes with that kind of stuff, so I definitely enjoy a good love story, and, you know, Miraculous Ladybug is one of my favorite shows, so it's all about that shipping, you know, so Wade and Artemis there, you know, I like seeing their relationship kind of grow and whatnot, so that's cool. But so yeah, so he basically just dives head in because he wants to finish the contest to get back for her. You know, it used to be just for himself, and this is one of the first things he says to Artemis is like, what I want to do with the money that I'm going to win is I'm going to just get out of this world. I'm just going to go, I'm going to build a spaceship and fill it with video games and shit, and just go find a different planet. You know, I don't want to live on this planet anymore or whatever, basically. And Artemis is like trying to fix the world. She's like, I'm going to feed all the people and we're going to, you know, tackle world hunger or whatever. And you know, there's this whole great thing where Parzival is like, well, you think it's that easy? You could just write a check and fix everything? And she's like, well, I'm going to try. So like, yeah, that's pretty cool. You know, like, that's noble. It's good stuff. So you know, I just appreciate that. Like, everyone's got good values of like why they want to get the money and whatever. Like, yeah, I guess we don't really ever find out about H or Artemis or H or Shoto or Daito, like why they all want the money. Just kind of a little plot point there, but like they're like secondary characters. I mean, they're main characters, but you know, like they're secondary to the two kind of main characters. Really, the main character is Wade Watts, but like Artemis is kind of a main character too. It's like, I don't know. Point being that there's this great part where he basically just shuts himself off from the rest of the world. He's got like a little bit of money so he can get out of the stacks, and he like goes to like the mecca of where this is, where you get the best internet and stuff. I think it's like, was it like Columbus, Ohio or something? We get like all the best internet and whatever, and because that's like where they're based out of, the Oasis people, Gregarious Games or whatever, are based out of, so you can get like the best connection to their stuff. There's also this like evil corporation called IOI, who's like the enemies. There's like Nolan Sorrento's the big bad, and that's who they're trying to stop this whole time. Is like, because they're also kind of like destroying the integrity of the hunt. Like, they're like lying and cheating their way through the whole thing. So like the whole thing becomes about like them trying to get there before the Sixers do, which is the IOI people, the Sixers, before they get through it, because they're just gonna, you know, screw up the Oasis, and they're gonna like start charging like a monthly fee and stuff and whatever, and so like the real Gunters are like, no, we can't let that shit happen, like, you know. So like basically he goes there, and he's like right under the thumb of IOI, but like he like makes a new identity and stuff, so that's pretty cool. Like his old identity is like supposedly dead, you know, kind of thing. But they don't know that he's still like alive and whatnot, which is pretty cool. So he's like a fugitive. He's like running, but he like makes a new identity or whatever, which is pretty cool. So he's like he goes into this apartment. He buys an apartment or whatever, and he like just shuts himself in there and like won't leave until the contest is over. Like, he's so focused on getting the contest done with, which is pretty cool. And they don't really go into that in the movie, because they kind of just like all meet up in this like haven for the fucking resistance or whatever. And like in the book, like he doesn't even meet Artemis's like the real Artemis until like the end of the literal end of the book. He doesn't meet Artemis until, but like in the fucking movie, like he just meets her like halfway through, and like he's like, oh, well, you're beautiful, like seriously, like spoilers, like I hate spoiling this stuff, but I just like want to talk about it, you know, because like this is my favorite book, you know. She's got like this, you know, that like God, I always forget what it's called, but like the purple like stain, the wine stain like birthmark thing. She's got like one of those on her face or whatever. Again, in the movie, it's so subtle and you can't even like fucking. It's like barely there. It's like, what the fuck? Like, it's not this. She's like all embarrassed about this. This is like a big part of her character. This is why she doesn't want him to see her in real life. She thinks that this is gonna detract from his ideal image of her or something, because her avatar basically looks like her without that. So like she's really worried about this. She's really self-conscious about this. But like in the movie, it's like, is it there? Oh, it's kind of there. It's kind of red like here, but it's like, whatever. Who cares? It's not fucking, you know, it's not as big of a deal. Anyway, not to put down anybody with like one of those birthmarks or whatever, because I kind of think it's cool, honestly. But just like, you know, it's like it's it doesn't look like that does look in real life. Like, I've seen somebody with that in real life. It's too light. It's just, it didn't look right in the movie, you know, kind of thing. And there was not, you know, she wouldn't have been as embarrassed about that for like, from like, the one in the movie, or maybe she would. I don't fucking know. You know, it just didn't make as much sense in the movie. And that's like the whole movie in general. It just wasn't, nothing was quite as good. It was good, but it just didn't live up to the book. But anyway, so, yeah, this is a big part of like her character and whatever. And so that's why I think Artemis is also a great character, is because she's, well, not only is she like a really strong, great female character, because, she's literally like way above Wade Watts in terms of level and stuff when this all starts, because Wade never had like any money to go traveling because he's just like a poor kid. Artemis like became kind of famous, and so she can get around and do all that stuff and whatever, but like, so it's like he's kind of like the underdog, you know, but like I like that one of his main competitors is this female who's a strong female character. That's good, you know. I like strong female characters. It's a big thing for me, you know. Like I play as female characters in all the video games and all this. We've had this conversation before. It's good stuff. But and she's always kind of one step ahead of him, and I kind of like that. And you know, it's good representation there. But anyway, so so yeah, so he kind of just isolates himself fully, and he doesn't want to leave his place. And there's like a part where like he literally has cut off all of his bridges with H and Artemis, and I think he like eventually like rekindles with Daito and Shoto to kind of go on some like non-hunt related quests or whatever. But like for a minute there, he's just like, it's just him, and nobody wants to be his friend and whatever, and like he's just isolated, and he just really dives into this video game, you know, and that's escapism right there, and it's like finest. Like it's such a perfect representation of what that's like, that I just really relate to that part, because like, you know, like not that I've done to that level, to that extent, cut off everyone for video games, but sometimes it kind of feels like that, especially now. Like well, it did feel like that for a few months there when like everyone was in quarantine or whatever, and like we never were like super quarantinized. Like we could always come and hang out with each other, but like I remember my friend didn't come out and hang with me for like 2-3 months or some shit, or this is probably like 2 months. It felt like a long time though, and I felt lonely. I felt isolated, you know. Like hung out with like my brother and like some other friends sometimes, and it's like, but there was a big period there at the beginning of this year where it's like it was a tough time for me too, because I quit my job at the end of last year or whatever, and like so I've been looking for a job, so it was just kind of tough, you know. But anyway, so I relate to that. I relate to that feeling of isolationism, you know, especially now. And I've had that in my life at different points too, where it's just like, you know, I didn't really have anybody there for me. Like people wanted to be there, or they were there sometimes, but it's just like, you know, like my parents were both busy like people when I was like early teenager years, and like you know, even into high school and stuff. So like they tried their best, but like, you know, kind of thing. I appreciate them for that, you know, but like I'm just saying, like, you know, they weren't always there. So it's like I had to be an escapist too sometimes, and that's like, all right, you know, cool. Like that's all good. That's just how that works. So my point being that I really relate to this video game escapism thing. That's where we're getting at with that. But I just thought that part of the book is like really good. That's always one of the most memorable parts of the book for me, is that part. I really like the lead up to the first hunt too. I like all of the parts in the book, but another really memorable section of the book for me is the so before he like actually figures out what the second gate is all about, like how to, or get the second key, he has this idea about going to this planet called Arcade, and then so he goes there, and he realizes it's kind of a dead end, but he like finds this Easter egg, like another Easter egg, not the Easter egg, but like a different Easter egg. There's this like broken Pac-Man machine, and it's not like actually broken. He like plugs it in and turns it on or whatever. It's just like out of order on it, but it fires right up. And there's like this quarter sitting on top of it, and he's like, well, shit, this is like, this is something. Like, I know there's something here. And, like, one of the highest scores is, like, 10 points away from, like, a perfect Pac-Man game. And so he's like, shit, if I'm gonna, like, get this or do whatever this is, like, this, I gotta play a perfect game of Pac-Man. So he, like, sits there, gets himself all hyped up, he, like, reads all the material about it, and then there's just, like, this epic, like, explanation of all of how you get a perfect game in Pac-Man and, like, how you do this stuff. And it's like, that's what's so cool about the book, is that, like, not only does it reference this stuff, but it, like, explains it for people who don't know about this stuff. And I don't know about half of this stuff, you know? I never seen, like, fucking some of this shit, like, some, like, obscure shit in here that, like, I've never personally experienced or played or seen or whatever. So it's like, every time I go into it, it's like, I still understand because the explanations and the descriptions are so good, because, you know, it's because Ernest Cline just has a way of describing these things. And so it almost serves as like an encyclopedia of these 80 things as well, which is one of the cool aspects of the book. And I know that, like, some people, like, get online and they'll, like, read about this stuff while they're doing it. I did a little bit of that back then too while I was reading it, so. But I just think that's really cool, you know? But anyway, so then he, like, you know, he plays this perfect game of Pac-Man, and he gets this quarter, and, like, he doesn't know what the fuck the quarter's about. And then it, spoilers, I gotta keep saying that, because it's just like, you know, there's certain levels, like I'm literally gonna get to end game spoilers here, like, you know, at the very end of the book. So he ends up later on finding out that this quarter was an extra life, which is, like, something that isn't a thing in the Oasis. If you die in the Oasis, you die in real life. No, I'm just kidding. If you die in the Oasis, your character is dead, and you have to start over. It's a roguelike, you know, basically, in that sense. So, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy stuff. So, there's no such thing as an extra life until that point. And then he finds out later on, the Sixers, like, have this thing called the Cataclysm, and this is, like, at the very end of the book. This is, like, the big epic final battle where, like, it's, like, all this stuff happening, and then, like, as soon as they get to the third gate, he, like, the Sixers detonated this Cataclysm, which kills everybody in that entire section, which ends up being, like, every Oasis user ever, because they put out this, like, call to arms to, like, bring everyone in to fight the Sixers, and, like, fucking everyone shows up. It's pretty crazy. It's awesome. It's, like, this really, like, wow, like, empowering moment, and he's like, the Sixers finally looked outnumbered, and it's like, you know, you get this presence that they're, like, there's, like, a million of these Sixers the whole time or whatever. Like, you feel like they're everywhere, and they're outnumbering everyone else in every other aspect of the story. But then, like, finally, every Oasis user, like, dwarfs them, and it just feels, it's, like, so satisfying, you know? But anyway, so they detonate this thing called the Cataclysm, which, like, destroys everything in that sector or whatever. And Wade actually ends up being the only one that has an extra life because of this quarter. And it's like, fuck, that's awesome. Like, that's so cool. But, you know, okay, and then I hate to say it, but in the movie, the quarter just comes from, like, so this guy Ogden Morrow, he's the other guy that's the, Halliday's, like, partner in business and whatever. And Ogden Morrow, he fucking, just, like, he's, like, this curator or whatever in the movie. And I do want to say that it is a cool reference to the original thing that kind of inspired Ready Player One, which was Snow Crash, that there's this, like, library, that they go to a lot in the movie to kind of mitigate a lot of the research and whatnot, elements and just, like, sitting around that there is in the book. But there's this library in the movie that, is like a reference to Snow Crash. And then this curator guy is the one who gives him the quarter just kind of out of the blue. And it just doesn't feel as cool. Like, I know you probably couldn't have, like, done a thing where you play a perfect game of Pac-Man in the movie, but, like, that's such a more satisfying thing to put there than him just... Because, like, it just feels like, why would he give him this quarter, you know, which is an extra life, which is, like, this incredibly fucking rare thing in the Oasis there, and it's, like, a very valuable thing, because you don't have extra lives in the Oasis. So, it's like, it's just like, it's so hard to explain, but that just means everything in Extra Life. And not that he knew that at the time in either, but it just feels much more earned in the book, you know. Um, so I think that's cool. You know, that's another one of my favorite parts. I mean, that final fucking battle is one of my favorite fucking parts. Like, they all get these, like, mechs or whatever that are, like, old references to shit, and he's got, like, this Ultraman capsule that he got from this one quest or whatever. This is gonna be the... Yeah. Oh. Oh, okay. Right. Let's see. Hold on, sorry. Oh, yeah. Nice, this is a good one. So... What was I gonna say? Yeah, they've got, like, all these mechs and whatever, and, like, ships and stuff from this, this thing. Like, you got to choose one of these, from, like hundreds or, like, thousands of mechs and, like, stuff that are, like, old references to, like, old animes and, like, you know, video games and stuff, which is pretty cool. Like Sorrento takes, Godzilla, Mecha Godzilla or whatever, and he's, like, way bigger than all the other ones, and, like, yeah, so... I don't even remember kind of, like, what they... Oh, Wade... I know at least Wade's one. He takes, Supaida Man, which is, like, he's got a mech or Transfer Z... That's one of them. Somebody has that one. Anyway, Supaida Man has this mech or whatever, which is, like, Spider-Man. It's a Japanese Spider-Man or whatever. It's, like, a thing. But anyway, he has this mech, right? And so he takes that, and then he has to, like, yell all of the commands and whatever, which is pretty funny, because that's what they do in anime. Like, let's be real. They just yell everything. Which is funny. But, like, he also gets this beta capsule, which is the Ultraman thing, so you can turn into Ultraman for, like, what, 3 minutes or something every day? Or something to that effect. And so that's pretty cool. So that's an artifact that he can use, and he uses that to, like, fucking just slash the shit out of fucking, Mecha Godzilla and, like, kill Sorrento and shit, and it's like, oh my god, it's so epic. Like, Sorrento's such a dick. Like, alright, since we're just fucking spoiling everything, he fucking blew up Wade Watts' stack or whatever, like near the beginning of the book, like, after he first gets the copper key, because he's like, alright, tell us where the key is, or we're gonna kill you, or whatever. And he's like, you're like, oh shit, this is like a fucking intense moment. Wade's, like, not there. He's, like, at his hideout, a little ways away or whatever. And he's, like, thinking they're bluffing, and then he's, like, sitting there in his hideout, and he hears it. He's like, boom! It's like, fuck! Like, they killed everyone in those stacks! So that's the other reason he has to, like, get out of there, because, like, you know, move to Columbus or whatever. But, like, shit, like, you know, this is fucking intense. So, like, Sorrento is just, like, this pain in his ass the whole time. He's, like, this really, villainous presence. He's, like, one of the best villains, you know, like, really, really well done for a villain, like, seriously. And I like how he kind of stands for corrupting the Oasis, whereas Wade just wants to kind of keep the integrity of the Oasis, and all the Gunters do, really. But so that's cool. And I like how at the end they kind of have to team up, despite what, you know, despite the whole, like, one every man for himself kind of thing. They kind of have to team up at the end, because that's the way Halliday set it up, because Halliday didn't really have friends, so he, like, you know, like, Ogdemora was his friend, but they kind of had a falling out or whatnot, and so Halliday wanted to set it up so you would have to get friends to open the third gate, you know, you'd have to have more than one copy of the key and all this stuff, and, I think that's cool, and then, like, at the end there, he's like, hey, you know, don't waste your life in here, and it's, like, this nice, like, closing message about the whole isolationism and escapism thing. And, yeah, like, it's really, it's a good message. It's a beautiful message, you know. It's a message I still have to take to heart sometimes, you know, because, you know, I play a lot of video games, so, I definitely have that aspect of escapism. It's something I try to keep, doing, you know. What's the line? You know, reality is the only place... I'm not crazy about reality, but it's the only place where you can get a decent meal or whatever. And then, yeah. And then at the end, he's like, it's the only place you can actually, like, be truly happy. And it's like, yeah, you know, I feel that. You know, because people are the real great thing in life, you know, and friends and stuff, and family and all that. So, because those are the real connections, you know. And so, you know, and maybe it doesn't seem it, but I consider myself an introvert, especially when I don't, like, you know, I'm a little quiet sometimes, you know, so like it's cool to me that there's a book where the main character is kind of an introvert. He's kind of this lonely guy who's like, you know, he has to learn the value of friendship and the value of this and that. And I've always loved things about learning the value of friendship. You know, a certain show from 2013 that I really loved, and then of course, you know, like Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff had that as its like core theming was the value of friendship and stuff. And you know, I've always really loved that as a message. So this has that too, you know. So like, there you go. Like, all of the themes are definitely on point to making the book just like more than just like a glorified video game contest. There's a lot of meaning there too, you know. There's a lot of cool little things that mean something, and there's a lot of little connections that you can make and stuff. And I think that's really why the book took off so much. Is not only because, you know, okay, it came out at the right time with the boom in the video game, the retro video game craze and all of that, but like seriously, like the book is, it means something too, you know, is the other thing. Like, there's a lot of stuff that, you know, it's just, oh, like, it's just an action thing or whatever. It doesn't mean anything, you know. It's not much to it. It's just cool, you know. But this is cool and it means something, so that's cool. And even if it doesn't mean something to everyone, it means a lot to me, because I relate and struggle with a lot of the same stuff the main character in the book does, you know, the Wade Watson. So it's really relatable. That's all. As an introvert, when I have a hard time meeting and talking to some new people sometimes, so I feel that, you know, like, I get that, and that's cool. But yeah, I don't know. Let me see. What else is on my list that I should talk about? Rock out to this is it fucking Miss Pac-Man shit or whatever? Okay, yeah, we talked about the mystery, we talked about the good characters, the love story. I think it's cool how this is number 6, dystopian future versus the utopian MMO world and the well-realized and fleshed out world. We talked about the theming already and how there's good feels and inspirations. This is kind of the last point. Those two were after this one, but this is what we're going to talk about now. So I think it's an interesting contrast that the world in the thing has gone to shit, and so people have, it's not just the nerds anymore, you know. Everyone is using escapism through this Oasis thing, and not only because they want to, because they kind of have to. The Oasis is basically the new world, in a sense, you know. It's where everyone goes to do their jobs and learn and just do everything. All of this stuff is in the Oasis anymore, and you know, there's still physical versions of all of that stuff, but that stuff is the minority now versus the majority of where everything is inside the Oasis. So like, this is what people do. They live inside this game, basically. And so the game itself is more of a utopian thing, because it's like everything is there. All these video game worlds and all the video game worlds that are there, like, that exist, are there. You know, they have like the World of Warcraft world. They have all this shit. There's movie worlds and all this stuff. Recreations of real world locations and stuff. The Oasis has like everything in it. It's basically the internet on crack, basically. Like, if you could go inside the internet and, like, you know, even beyond like something like Mega Man Battle Network, like if the internet was like reality or something, like, I don't know how to explain that, but like, it has like a little bit of everything. Is this okay? This also is like 9 minutes. What the fuck? Okay, here we go. Here's a good one. Okay, well, let's listen to a little bit, because this is also a loop. But anyway, the internet is kind of this new reality, and that's a utopia. That's where people escape to. But the real world is like this dystopia. So there's like this nice contrast between the two, and you know, like, I just think it's interesting because that's kind of how our society is right now, in a sense, and especially right now. Like, there's no better timing for this than right now, where we've all sort of had to isolate ourselves, so we're all flocking to the internet and to, all of that, and escapism in that sense. And we can't really go out and do real things anymore. So in a sense, we're living that right now. Not as bad as it is in the book, of course, but we're sort of living this in a way right now. Yeah, I think it's interesting how the real world is like a dystopia in here, and the video game is kind of the utopia. And like, I get that that's usually how it is, but not to this extent to where like everyone has like fled into this video game, like to where they don't really care about their physical forms anymore. They care more about their the fun and the what they can do within the game, the virtual selves more so than the physical self, which I think is certainly interesting, and certainly an interesting concept to think about and play around with, because yeah, it's just I feel that sometimes. Anyway, so that's the thing I wanted to say. Let's see if we got any other points here that I really wanted to get onto. I don't know. It just seems like, oh, here we go. Perfect. Good, perfect way to end it, right? It just, to me, I don't know if I got across my point here, why I think this is like the best book. I think I did. It's a really personal story to me. It means a lot to me as a story because I relate so much to it. Is it nerdy? Yeah, it's nerdy, but a lot of that is made for people like me, and even just like introverted people, or people who have trouble with escapism and whatnot. And, and even the Metal Gear series kind of touches on this. Stop with all the war. Like, just go live. Like that's another thing. And of course that's Kojima's way of telling us like, hey, you've played this video game, now go out and live your life, kind of thing. And I really appreciate that. And so some of my favorite media has the same message of going and living your life kind of thing, and so I just really appreciate that this book also has that, just everything in this book means so much to me, and now it's even got like a nostalgic connection because I was there when it was big and when this contest happened and all of that kind of stuff. But it's not just that. The book still holds up as just like one of the coolest, like, it's all about this contest and it's a mystery and it just has all these really great elements to it. Great theming and great, here, we'll just go down the list, right? Great theming. It came out at the perfect time. They did the contest for real. It was great theming. Video game references. Good fan service. Like, that's hard to do. You don't just do that. A really good premise with good story structure, a good mystery, relatable characters. Like, the characters are awesome. It's so relatable to like an introvert and just any nerd in general kind of thing. They all have really good character development. There's a good love story, which I always appreciate. Great setting, dystopia versus the MMO utopia. The world's really fleshed out, and they give you good details for like everything that's happening. There's good theming, and it shows the horrors and the values of escapism, and you get the feels, and it's definitely inspiring to writers like myself, and that's really what I appreciate about the book. The movie only gets some of that, and that's why it's the weaker element for sure. But it's also a good way to end it. But yeah, so I just I didn't think I could talk seriously while listening to this. Yeah, there you go. So that's it. I really, really enjoy this book. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. Um, I don't have anything else to say about it, I don't think. I mean, I could say so many other things about it. I just don't want to keep going on and on because I'll just ramble about, oh, wasn't this great part? Like, oh, look at this little reference and this and that. And it's like, if you still, like, if you haven't read the book and you watch the whole thing, like, you should still go and read the book. It's still worth experiencing, even though I've spoiled little, big, big and little elements for you along the way. It's just, it's so well done. And this is why I'm really looking forward to Ready Player 2, because this book means so much to me. Ernest Cline's other book, Armada, that was pretty good too. It wasn't necessarily on this level, but I also really liked that one. So if you're looking for something else to read in the meantime, Ready Player 2 comes out in like November or something. So that's it. Hopefully that's good, you know? Hopefully it's no Last of Us 2 or something. Hopefully this is... Because there's so much potential for this world, you know? And that's what I really am looking forward to. Yeah. So, that's it. That's all. Ready Player One is amazing. It's the best book I've read, or my favorite book anyway. And that's it. Until next time, this has been JZNES saying keep the classics, stick around for more reviews, underrated games, and sometimes random books and movies and shit. And I'll see you guys in the next one. JZ